from Atlanta. Hey, Connor, always great to get you on the show. Thanks so much for taking the time this afternoon. Well, coming up, do you think a teenager is too young to get into the world of investing? Our next guest might change your mind about that. We're back in 2 minutes. This is Take a Break. Welcome back to Take a Break. I'm Tim Stenevec in New York. Well, several studies have shown that investing in women-led VCs has an enormous impact on diverse founders downstream. Well, our next guest is hoping to do that and more, and she hasn't even graduated from high school yet. Bloomberg QuickTake's Jennifer Zabasaja is here to explain. Hey, Jen.
Hey, Tim. Yeah, at just 16 years old, Taarini Kaur is a self-proclaimed youngest venture capitalist in the world. She has just announced that she's raised $870,000 in her first major funding round, and we're really excited to welcome Taarini to QuickTake right now. She's joining us from Fremont, California. Taarini, congratulations on this major funding round, and thanks so much for being here today. First of all, at 16 years old, I know I wasn't interested in venture capital. I know most teenagers maybe aren't. I mean, when did it start to become something that you really wanted to pursue?
Well, thank you for having me. And I would like to begin by talking about my story. My parents were both in the tech industry, born and raised in Silicon Valley. And the dining table conversations we would have would be about new technologies, new startup ideas, and I would be so fascinated by them. And that's what led me to starting an entrepreneurship club in my school. It took me 3 years. This was back in 5th grade. This took me 3 years to actually convince my school to start an entrepreneurship club. But luckily, by 8th grade, I was able to do so, where I was able to gather 25 students and, help them cultivate an idea, prototype, how to pitch to VCs, target market, educating them on all the aspects of entrepreneurship. I learned that students learn in a step-by-step process. That is what led me to writing my first book, The Young Aspiring Entrepreneur. It shows you the steps and problems you have to overcome to become an entrepreneur. It talks about the age, social, and gender biases I faced. It guides you on how to overcome them. And I've been honored and lucky to have quotes from several eminent personalities and mentors, like for the Chancellor of UC San Diego, Mr. Khosla, as well as Professor Chuck Easley from Stanford's entrepreneurship. Concurrently, I co-founded a women empowerment Instagram account called Classy Women, where I ran the helpline for women there, where I gave advice on anything from gender discrimination, domestic violence, to career advice, and I've helped over 500 women. And that is when I realized that venture capital can really, give a huge impact, I realized when I realized that 43% of publicly traded US companies are venture capital backed. So clearly venture capital has a social and economic impact on the world. The World Economic Forum projects that at the current rate of progress, it'll take 208 years to reach gender equality in the US. And venture capital has this sort of a domino effect. See, when you invest in one startup, it has X impact, but I wanted to scale that. That's why I chose venture capital. Venture capital funds new ideas. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, I mean, those statistics that you point out, we talk about them a lot on QuickTake. And so I'm just curious, what was your approach to convincing some of these investors to fund Brave 14 Capital, which is your fund? I mean, what did you say? Because not only are women underrepresented in VC, the funding is not going to them. So what is it that you told these investors who came on board this time?
No, that's a great question. I think fundraising, in my experience, is about storytelling. I really voiced my long-term vision for the venture capital fund. I talked to several people about how I plan to leverage venture capital to make a long-lasting impact by investing in underrepresented founders, in female-founded startups. We've all heard that astounding statistic where it's like 2% of venture capital funding goes towards female-founded startups. Venture capital, I talked about how venture capital funds new ideas. If you fund companies with underrepresented entrepreneurs, especially women, in C-suite roles, you empower them to prove their strengths, show their capabilities, make their mark on the world, and illuminate the path for others. I talked about how I would like to invest in startups. Why I started my venture capital fund is so I can invest in several entrepreneurs who will become role models for the next generation of entrepreneurs, rather than, so as you can see, like venture capital has such a long-lasting impact. And that's really what I tried to showcase in my story. And I think that's what convinced a lot of my investors.
And so what are some of these companies that you plan to invest in? Because I know you've also said it's about the people too. It's not just about the company idea.
Definitely. Founding team really does matter when deciding a company. Right now, I'm in the stage of looking through a lot of companies. One I'm currently looking at is Passionflix, along with Andela. Andela is this company I was thinking of. I actually had the opportunity to interview one of the founders, Christina Sass. It's basically, it has a social impact as well as economic impact. How it works is they educate software engineers in Africa, and they bring them abroad to find different jobs here as well, because software engineering is so in demand, and they take around 10% of their income. And I think that's a great model, and it's a great business model, because not only does it have an economic impact, but it also has a social impact, and it's uplifting a whole class entirely.
Absolutely. And Taarini, I have to ask, I mean, you're 16 years old. Do your friends also, are they also involved or interested in the VC world, just as interested as you are? Because, I mean, we talk a lot about how this next generation is thinking differently about investing. I mean, I wonder what your friends are saying right now, watching you do this.
Well, yes, my friends are very supportive and very ambitious as well. I think, such a wide gap exists in venture capital industry. One of my visions for the next decade is to get more teenagers, especially girls, to become VCs, or at least think about venture capital as a career option. So I always try to tell my friends about it and explain to them, and educate them about the venture capital field, because female VCs are more likely to invest in female-founded startups. This will have like a flywheel effect in the world and can help bend the gender gap as those companies will expand. So definitely, I do try my best to teach them and tell them about venture capital, so they at least know that it's a career option out there for them.
And how does the VC world pull in those teenagers? I mean, what do they need to do to pull in that talent?
That's a great question. I think simply talk about it. Spreading awareness is very important. Going to different schools, talking to teenage girls, and letting them know that they are capable of this. They need to feel like they belong. See, I think diversity funding is important, but you have to make sure that people, feel like they belong. So you have to really talk to them and explain to them the importance of venture capital. And a lot of people don't know about it. So simply educating them, going to different events, encouraging them to learn more about different technologies, I think that's a great way to start.
On social media as well, because I know that's where you leverage a lot of your communication, right?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. All right, Taarini Kaur, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story about Brave 14 Capital at just 16 years old. Tim?
Yeah, wow. I keep thinking back to what I was doing when I was 16, and it was not thinking about venture capital. A fascinating conversation. Thanks so much, Jen. Well, coming up next, a climate solution we can all do something about. We're back in 2 minutes.